Have you ever given your all to someone, only for them to vanish without a trace, leaving you feeling erased and wondering if you ever truly mattered? That sudden silence can feel like an emotional death, a cruel void where explanations and goodbyes should have been. You're left replaying every moment, searching for answers that never come, while they seemingly walk away as if nothing happened. This isn't just a breakup. It's a silent discard, a profound psychological wound that leaves you questioning your worth and sanity. But what if I told you that their silence isn't a reflection of your value, but a stark revelation of their own character? Imagine pouring your soul into a connection, believing in its depth, only to be met with an abrupt, unexplained departure. The sting of being discarded without a single word, no reason, no closure, cuts deeper than any argument or accusation. It leaves you feeling unheard, unseen, and utterly bewildered. You might find yourself caught in a relentless loop of overthinking, dissecting every detail, desperately seeking understanding. This experience, known as the silent discard, is one of the most psychologically violent forms of emotional abandonment. Yet, the true power lies not in their leaving, but in the profound transformation that can begin when you choose to embrace your own silence. The most chilling form of cruelty isn't found in screaming matches or harsh words, but in the deafening silence that follows betrayal. It's the stark contrast of someone who once made you feel like you mattered, now behaving as if you never existed. This act, the silent discard, can feel like an amputation, severing you from a life you invested your very essence into. You're left with an agonizing lack of answers, no sense of finality, and a heart that feels like shattered glass. But what if this seemingly devastating silence holds the key to your ultimate liberation and the unexpected downfall of the person who tried to diminish you? Welcome to StoicCraft. Here, we delve into the depths of human experience, offering insights and tools to navigate life's challenges with unwavering strength and inner peace. Today, we're going to explore a topic that touches many of us deeply: the silent discard. This video isn't about fostering bitterness or seeking revenge. It's about empowering you to become emotionally sovereign and stoically detached, transforming your pain into an unshakable source of quiet confidence and power. Understanding the silent discard, their cowardice, not your worth. When someone abruptly discards you without offering any explanation or goodbye, it's crucial to understand that this action has nothing to do with your inherent worth. Instead, it speaks volumes about their own shortcomings. Silence in this context isn't a display of strength. It's an act of escape, a cowardly retreat from accountability and uncomfortable truths. What they least expect and what will ultimately become the most devastating force they ever encounter is your empowered silence. You don't need to seek revenge, nor do you need to prove anything to them. Your only imperative is to withdraw, to pull your precious energy back, and to quietly begin rebuilding your life in the shadows. When you master this art of withdrawal, something remarkable happens. They begin to falter. This isn't because you actively sought to destroy them, but because they themselves extinguished the one true light, your genuine care and presence, that illuminated their existence. This journey we're embarking on together is not about clinging to past grievances. It's about becoming emotionally untouchable, reclaiming your sovereignty, and cultivating a profound Stoic detachment from outcomes beyond your control. We will walk you through the intricate psychology behind the silent discard, demonstrating why your absence can wield far more power than your presence ever did, and how to transcend the pain that not with an aggressive pursuit of retribution, but with a deep, quiet confidence and an unyielding inner strength. The psychology behind the discard, why they go silent. The unique cruelty of the silent discard doesn't manifest through overt screaming, insults, or physical violence. It emanates from their sudden, vanishing act, from the hollow silence that inevitably follows a profound betrayal. It comes from someone who once declared your importance, now behaving as if you never existed in their world. This emotional abandonment is, without exaggeration, one of the most psychologically violent experiences you can endure. However, there's a liberating truth they never want you to grasp. They didn't leave silently because you meant nothing to them. On the contrary, they vanished because they simply couldn't face the profound significance you actually held. Why do individuals resort to this silent tactic? The psychology behind the silent discard often reveals individuals who are emotionally immature, possess narcissistic traits, or are plagued by deep-seated insecurities. Instead of confronting discomfort, engaging in conflict, or facing uncomfortable truths, they invariably choose the path of silence. This choice isn't driven by a desire for peace. It's a calculated maneuver for control. By disappearing without a single word of explanation, they achieve three insidious goals simultaneously. Avoid accountability. They skillfully evade any responsibility for their actions. There's no need for an apology, no requirement for self-reflection, and no messy conversations to navigate. It's an effortless escape hatch they pull, seemingly without consequence. Create confusion. The absence of closure inevitably sends your mind into a spiraling state of confusion. You begin to question every facet of your being, your worth, the authenticity of your shared memories, and even your own sanity. In this state of disarray, they maintain a subtle yet potent form of power over you, preserve their image. Without an argument or a direct confrontation, they can conveniently walk away feeling guilt-free. Worse still, they can even subtly manipulate the narrative, painting you as the problem for overreacting. This is emotional manipulation in its most subtle, yet profoundly damaging form. The wounds it inflicts are deep, often invisible, and remarkably long-lasting. However, by understanding this insidious dynamic, you can finally stop blaming yourself and begin the crucial process of reclaiming the very power they attempted to strip away. It was never about you. The empowering truth here is where emotional intelligence truly becomes your most formidable weapon. When someone discards you in such a cruel manner, your initial, visceral instinct is often to internalize the blame. I wasn't enough. I must have done something wrong, or if I truly mattered, they would have at least said goodbye. But the reality, while colder, is ultimately far more empowering. People discard others in silence, not because the discarded person is worthless, but precisely because they are too meaningful for the other person to confront. Your authentic presence likely forced them to confront their own deep-seated dysfunction. Your genuine love illuminated what they were fundamentally incapable of reciprocating. Your honesty threatened the carefully constructed illusion they had built around themselves for survival. And when that mirror of truth became too clear, too sharp for their comfort, they simply shattered it. They didn't walk away because their feelings for you evaporated. They walked away because genuinely caring for you would have necessitated personal growth. And growth, for individuals who habitually hide behind emotional immaturity, is a terrifying prospect. The Stoic interpretation. Detachment as discipline. In the profound wisdom of Stoic philosophy, the core principle is not what external events happen to us, but how we consciously choose to respond to them. Being discarded can feel like an immense injustice, an unbearable slight. However, if we allow ourselves to cling to it, obsess over it, or desperately beg for clarity, we are effectively surrendering our inner peace to someone who demonstrably never deserved it in the first place. The Stoic answer to such an ordeal is disciplined detachment. You are not required to chase them. You are not obligated to demand closure. You are certainly not compelled to combat their silence with a cacophony of your own emotional noise. Because, in truth, the most powerful and resonant response you can offer is your unwavering refusal to respond at all. Consider Anna's story. She poured her heart and soul into a relationship, only for the person to vanish overnight. No texts, no calls, just an impenetrable silence. For weeks, she spiraled, convinced it was her fault. But then, a profound shift occurred within her. She stopped desperately asking why. She ceased chasing ghosts. She, too, disappeared, not out of a desire to punish, but with the sole purpose of protecting and healing her soul. 2 years later, the very same person messaged her, a seemingly contrite, "I miss you. I've been thinking about you for a long time." But by then, Anna had meticulously rebuilt a life so rich, so strong, and so deeply peaceful that she didn't even feel the need to reply. That profound silence born of her self-reclamation resonated deeper and inflicted more profound self-reflection than any act of revenge ever could. Your power begins now. Walking without answers, rising with power, the silent discard is not the desolate end of your narrative. It is, in fact, the potent beginning of your profound transformation. The very moment someone attempts to diminish you through silence is the precise moment you begin the vital process of learning how to grow and find peace within that silence. This is where your true journey commences, not by receiving answers from them, but by cultivating the unwavering refusal to need them. When someone abandons you without a single word, the most agonizing instinct that arises is the desperate need for understanding. Why did they leave? Was it something I did? Do they still think of me? If I could just talk to them one last time, I'd feel better. This craving for clarity is entirely natural, but it is a cunning trap, a dangerous illusion disguised as healing. It's a snare that keeps you emotionally entangled in a space you have already profoundly outgrown. The illusion of closure. You choose it. The concept of closure has been heavily romanticized in our culture. We envision it as this perfectly tidy, mature conversation where two individuals sit down, respectfully share their truths, and part ways amicably. But in the stark reality of the silent discard, individuals who vanish without a word are rarely interested in genuine peace. Their true interest lies in maintaining control. They don't desire a final, illuminating conversation. They crave ultimate power, and their silence grants it to them. You might mistakenly believe that obtaining closure from them will liberate you. However, in the vast majority of these cases, what you are actually chasing is external validation. You desperately want them to acknowledge the pain they inflicted. You crave their explanation, their admission of wrongdoing, their confirmation that, yes, you mattered, and yes, I was wrong. But here's the brutal, yet liberating, truth. Anyone capable of walking away so easily was never going to offer you that kind of genuine honesty or accountability. The psychological cost of persistently chasing this elusive closure is immense. Every time you reach out, you are inadvertently reinforcing a deeply toxic loop within your own mind. Their response dictates my healing. Their acknowledgement grants me peace. This dangerous mindset inextricably links your self-worth to someone who has already carelessly discarded you. It creates an emotional debt where your healing is perpetually contingent upon their payment. And the stark reality, they are simply not going to pay. Not because you don't inherently deserve it, but because they are too weak and emotionally underdeveloped to confront the gravity of their actions. So when you pursue them for closure, you are not truly asking for a resolution. You are, in essence, asking to reopen a wound that desperately needs to be sealed. This is precisely where emotional intelligence liberates you. You don't receive closure from them. You give closure to yourself. This isn't an easy path, nor does it always feel fair. But it is the only path because you are the sole architect of your own peace, capable of concluding this painful chapter without succumbing to bitterness. This is the ultimate act of self-discipline, accepting that the person who inflicted the wound cannot and will not be the one to heal it. You cease needing their explanations, their guilt, or their empty words, because sometimes silence itself is the most profound answer. And when you stop chasing answers, you can finally begin chasing true, lasting peace. Consider Marcus. After being silently discarded by someone he deeply loved, he spent weeks endlessly typing and deleting messages. I just want to understand. Why did you ghost me? I thought we had something real, but he never sent them. And then, one day, something profound shifted within him, not in a surge of rage, but with crystal clear clarity. He realized that if they truly cared, he wouldn't be left wondering. If they respected him, he wouldn't need to ask. So instead of sending that futile, final message, he took decisive action. He blocked their number, deleted their chat history, and embarked on a long, silent walk. That was the pivotal moment he reclaimed his power, not by confronting them, but by courageously confronting himself. As the Stoics wisely teach, let go of what you can't control. Peace doesn't come from controlling external outcomes, but from mastering your own response. Their explanation, their apology, their regret, that is their journey. Your journey is distinct and vital. It is to protect your energy, to elevate your standards, and to walk away without ever looking back. Not because you no longer care, but because you have evolved far too much to remain tethered to what no longer serves you. You don't need their text messages, their voice, or their permission to move forward with your life. The closure you truly seek isn't a pronouncement from them. It's a declaration you release from within yourself. I deserve peace even without an explanation. And when you walk through life with that profound clarity, you cease chasing and begin a powerful ascent. Their control collapses. Your absence echoes. Louder, there's an undeniable devastation in silence. Not the silence of apathy, but the profound silence of someone who once deeply cared and now simply doesn't. You might mistakenly believe that your silence goes unnoticed, that your absence is irrelevant, that once they discarded you, they never looked back. But this, my friends, is merely an illusion. The powerful truth is that your absence echoes far louder and more profoundly than any confrontation ever could. This is because individuals who fully expected you to beg, to chase, or to crumble emotionally simply don't know how to process the one thing they never anticipated: you gracefully walking away without uttering a single word. When they discarded you, they fully expected a predictable reaction. Perhaps anger, perhaps tears, perhaps desperate, late-night phone calls. They needed your emotional reaction because it served to validate their perceived power over you. However, when you offer them nothing but pure, unshakable, unapologetic silence, you do something infinitely more dangerous to their fragile ego. You shatter the very illusion that they ever truly had control over you. You cease being a mere character in their self-serving drama, and instead become a haunting ghost in their conscience. And nothing, I repeat, nothing, haunts the guilty more profoundly than the serene silence of someone they have wronged. Why can't narcissistic individuals, or those with deep emotional immaturity, tolerate your absence? It's because they don't seek genuine connection. They seek reflection. They crave mirrors, people who constantly affirm their identity, inflate their ego, and reliably respond to their manipulative tactics. When you disappear, you take that mirror with you. Now they are relentlessly forced to confront themselves, and what they see is often a terrifying void, emptiness, shame, a fractured self that was entirely reliant on your presence to feel whole. They didn't just lose you. They lost the very illusion that kept them emotionally alive. Consider Lisa's experience. She endured an 11-month situationship with someone who consistently refused to commit, ghosted her every time she dared to set a boundary, and then reappeared as if nothing had happened. But one day, Lisa went silent. No angry texts, no emotional goodbyes, just absolute nothingness. 3 months later, he messaged her, "I still think about you. I wasn't ready then. Can we talk?" But by then, Lisa was no longer waiting. She was unequivocally glowing. She was engaged in therapy, in peak physical shape, and deeply at peace. Her silence had achieved what no argument or confrontation ever could. It exposed him to the painful truth of himself, and he simply couldn't bear it. In psychological terms, this phenomenon is often referred to as narcissistic injury, the profound collapse that occurs when a person's inflated false self-image is directly threatened or completely ignored. Your silence precisely creates this collapse because in their deluded mind, they are the ones holding the power. They believe they get the final word, that they decide when the interaction is truly over. But when you gracefully remove your energy, without their permission and without any drama, you seize back the script, and their self-serving show simply cannot continue without you. The Stoics wisely taught, "He who angees you controls you." But silence is the epitome of emotional mastery. It is not passive, it is deliberately calculated. To say nothing when you possess the power to utterly destroy them with words is true power. To gracefully walk away when you could confront is immense strength. To be absent when they fully expect you to spiral into chaos is dominance. This isn't suppression of emotion. It is quiet confidence, a profound spiritual discipline. It is the serene calm that follows a storm, because you, my friend, have become the unpredictable storm they never saw coming. Your silence, a sentence they can't escape. You don't need to seek revenge. You don't need to obtain closure. You don't even need them to miss you. What truly breaks them is the profound realization that you no longer need them at all. Your silence powerfully declares, "I know who I am. I protect my sacred energy. I will not explain my inherent worth to those who are fundamentally incapable of seeing it." And that, to someone who carelessly discarded you like trash, is the loudest, most devastating scream they will ever hear. There is something inherently sacred in the act of vanishing. And two, not in bitterness, not in rage, but in a state of full, calculated detachment. To disappear not to punish, but to protect yourself. Not to manipulate, but to reclaim your power. Not to make them suffer, but to heal yourself without any distractions. And when executed with such purity of intention, this silence, this profound absence, becomes the most spiritually disciplined act of emotional intelligence you will ever commit. Disappearing does not equate to running away. It is, in essence, rising above. When people hear the word disappear, they often mistakenly associate it with cowardice. But here's the liberating truth. You are not running from anything. You are deliberately walking away from the incessant noise to return to the clarity of your own voice. You are consciously choosing quiet over chaos, profound peace over performative reactions, and unwavering self-respect over self-sacrifice. Disappearing signifies that you have, at long last, ceased negotiating your intrinsic worth in environments that were auctioning it off for free. The psychology of withdrawal. Reclaiming your frame in relationships plagued by manipulation, neglect, or emotional ambiguity. You were likely ensnared within their psychological frame, their rules, their pace, their unpredictable vanishing acts. But when you consciously choose to go silent, you fundamentally disrupt this toxic psychological loop. You break the oppressive chain of stimulus and response. You cease dancing to their dysfunctional rhythm and powerfully return to the steady, reassuring beat of your own heart. This is not about revenge. It is about profound reframing. You are no longer a reactive object in their distorted narrative. You have powerfully transformed into a sovereign subject in your very own story. Rebirth, true rebirth, happens in silence. There's a profound reason why prophets sought the desert, why warriors underwent solitary training, and why monks deliberately chose silence. It's not born of a fear of the world, but from the understanding that true power is cultivated in absence, not amidst distracting noise. When you disappear, you finally begin to hear your own thoughts clearly again. You reconnect with your deepest values. You meticulously establish psychological boundaries that, while unseen, are profoundly felt by everyone upon your return. This is not a retreat. It is a powerful regeneration. You heal. You evolve. You remember exactly who you are, unburdened by anyone else's fleeting opinion. Consider Jordan's true story. After being silently discarded by her partner of 4 years, no closure, just an agonizing silence, she felt utterly shattered. Her every instinct screamed to beg, to scream, to demand an explanation. But something profound within her whispered, "Don't fight for the illusion. Rebuild the reality." So she embarked on a radical path. She vanished from social media, from mutual friend circles, from anything that kept her orbiting around his lingering ghost. In that year of profound silence, she dedicated herself to therapy, traveled alone, launched her own successful business, and most importantly, fell deeply in love with herself. A year later, he messaged her. But by then, he wasn't messaging the broken woman he had carelessly discarded. He was messaging a version of her he could never have possibly imagined rising. She didn't even reply, not out of ego, but because her transformative silence had already articulated everything. Quiet confidence. The strength they can't steal. What most people fail to grasp is this fundamental truth. Confidence isn't loud. It's profoundly still. It doesn't need to announce its presence. It doesn't beg to be understood or validated. It doesn't react impulsively. It masterfully redirects. When you choose to disappear, you begin to embody this quiet, unyielding confidence. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your actions or your worth. You stop senselessly leaking your precious energy into conversations that lead nowhere. And that profound stillness, it absolutely terrifies those who depended on your emotional chaos to feel a twisted sense of control. True inner power doesn't shout. It quietly withdraws. The great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And that, precisely, is what true disappearance bestows upon you. A calm mind that no longer needs to be loud to be heard. You are not seeking external applause. You are diligently seeking internal alignment. You are not begging to be seen. You have profoundly become the one observing. You have gracefully stepped out of the battlefield, not because you lost, but because the war itself was never truly worthy of your energy or your spirit. Disappearing isn't about ghosting. It's not passive aggression. It's certainly not revenge. It is unequivocally a declaration that your energy is sacred, that your healing is not a public performance, and that your life does not require their participation to be extraordinary. And when you finally re-emerge, if you ever choose to, you will be utterly unrecognizable, not because you've fundamentally changed who you are, but because you have, at long last, become all that they so desperately tried to suppress. Their miscalculation, your unforeseen evolution. When they walked away without a word, they presumptuously assumed they knew exactly how your story would end. They fully expected you to beg, to cry, to plead for closure. They envisioned you spiraling into utter chaos, because in their narrow perception, you were emotionally fragile, dependent, and inherently weak. But here's what they never ever expected. You didn't fall apart. You fell into profound alignment. They profoundly miscalculated who you truly were. Let's be honest, they never truly knew you at all. They only perceived the superficial you. kindness, your vulnerability, your patience, and tragically mistook it for weakness. But what they utterly failed to see was your quiet endurance, your unspoken strength, the countless battles you had already survived long before they ever entered your life. They mistakenly thought you were soft because you had the courage to love deeply. But deep love doesn't originate from fragility. It springs forth from immense courage. So when they discarded you, they confidently expected your world to crumble into dust. But instead you rose silently, methodically, fiercely. They drastically underestimated your emotional intelligence. You didn't chase after them. You didn't desperately try to prove your worth. You didn't fight to remain in a place where you were clearly disrespected. Instead, you paused. You processed the pain, and you powerfully pivoted toward your own profound healing. That level of emotional maturity is remarkably uncommon, and it absolutely terrifies those who rely on your emotional volatility to maintain their manipulative control. When you refused to react, you completely disrupted their entire game. Because the one thing manipulators can never exploit is someone who intrinsically knows their own worth in the quietest of silences. What they least expected was your astonishing evolution. They expected you to patiently wait, to shrink into yourself, to utterly lose your sense of self. But instead, you meticulously focused on rebuilding yourself, lifting the heavy weights of your emotional baggage, sharpening your mind, and growing into the formidable person they never supported, but now secretly fear. Your silence became your gym. Your solitude became your most trusted therapist. Your pain transformed into your greatest teacher. And now you are no longer the same person they carelessly left behind. You are a living blueprint of resilience, a testament to strength they will never fully comprehend. Consider Ryan's journey. After a 5-year relationship, his partner ghosted him without any explanation. He was utterly devastated for a week. Then something inside him shifted irrevocably. He stopped obsessively checking her social media. He stopped replaying old conversations in his mind. He bravely signed up for a personal development program, started running every single morning, and audaciously built a successful startup from scratch. 1 year later, she reached out, observing, "You seem different now." He was not colder, nor was he cruel. He was simply unavailable to anyone who couldn't genuinely handle his evolved, higher version. He had grown so far beyond the man she left that he could no longer even relate to the one she had discarded. When you cease seeking validation from those who abandoned you, you begin to unlock an entirely new level of intrinsic inner power. You no longer dwell on, "How could they leave me like that?" Instead, you profoundly ask, "Why did I tolerate that for so long?" That crucial shift, that mental pivot, is your ultimate liberation. You have stopped desperately asking for clarity from someone who thrived in confusion. You have stopped expecting closure from someone who never respected the sanctity of the door. Now you meticulously build your own doors, your own gates, your own uncheckable boundaries. And guess what? They are no longer invited. They will collapse, not because you actively hurt them, but because you courageously healed yourself. What truly breaks them isn't your anger. It is your profound evolution. It's witnessing you live a life they can no longer access, seeing you thrive in peaceful silence without needing to be seen. You became a mirror, but this time not the kind that reflects their false self. This time you reflect what they will never possess: strength, grace, and an unshakable peace. You have become truly untouchable. You were never destined to crumble. You were meant to rise. Their absence didn't break you. It profoundly freed you. And now they are forced to watch from the sidelines as the person they so carelessly underestimated becomes the very version they secretly envy, because you didn't merely survive the discard, you courageously transcended it. Their undoing. The vacuum effect and your unbothered peace. There's a brutal irony at play here. They mistakenly thought their silence would shatter you. They firmly believed that walking away without offering closure would leave you spiraling into an endless abyss of confusion and pain. They confidently assumed that your worth was inextricably tied to their presence in your life, but they were profoundly wrong, because while they departed, convinced you would collapse, you quietly rose in purpose. And while you meticulously healed in solitude, they slowly, painfully fell apart in the cacophony of their own inner noise. Let's delve into why. The first casualty in your absence is their cherished illusion of control. For someone who thrives on attention, manipulation, or a sense of emotional superiority, your deliberate disengagement feels like a psychological death. To them, you weren't merely a person. You were a mirror, a consistent source of supply, a puppet they could provoke and soothe on command. But when you go completely silent, fully, cleanly, leaving no emotional crumbs behind, they are brutally forced to confront the truth they have so desperately avoided. They were never truly in control. You just hadn't reclaimed your power yet. Now that you have, they spiral. Your silence ruthlessly exposes their inner void. While you have diligently cultivated purpose, clarity, and spiritual discipline, they remain tragically trapped in an emotional loop of projection and denial. Because when someone discards you to feel free, but then realizes that you are the one who actually found freedom, they begin to unravel. Suddenly, the person who pretended not to care is obsessively watching your every silent move. The one who ghosted you starts feeling profoundly haunted, not by you, but by the magnificent version of you they were too impatient to wait and see bloom. Your disappearance triggers the one thing they fear above all else: irrelevance. You rise because you courageously transformed your pain into a powerful purpose. While they remain stuck in emotional limbo, you masterfully used the silence to rewire your entire mindset. You didn't just move on, you moved inward. You established robust psychological boundaries. You built an unshakable emotional intelligence. You cultivated a high-performance mindset driven by your newfound purpose, not by lingering pain. And purpose, my friend, changes everything. You stopped waiting for empty apologies. You stopped replaying agonizing scenes in your head. You stopped senselessly leaking your precious energy to people who flat out refused to grow. You didn't escape the darkness. You bravely walked through it and emerged as pure light. Consider Camila's powerful story. After 12 years of immense emotional labor in a marriage where she was consistently taken for granted, she was discarded without a goodbye, without an explanation. Just gone. But instead of collapsing, she chose to journal. Every single day, she transmuted her heartbreak into a published memoir that now inspires thousands of women to bravely reclaim their voices. Years later, her ex attempted to reach out, but she had already moved to a new city, embraced a new career, and started a vibrant new chapter. He didn't lose her when he walked away. He lost her when he mistakenly thought her silence signified weakness. It signified evolution. Your silence is not a weapon. It is an impenetrable wall they cannot penetrate. Some individuals mistakenly perceive silence as an act of aggression. But for someone who has diligently built inner peace, silence is not warfare. It is a sacred boundary. It powerfully states, I no longer possess the emotional bandwidth to explain to you why I deserve basic human respect. That level of profound detachment is terrifying to those who have historically used guilt, shame, or blame to meticulously control the narrative. When you are no longer reactive, you become unreadable, uncheckable, and utterly untouchable. And in that profound stillness, you rise. They collapse because they remain tragically unchanged. The ultimate tragedy is this: they collapse not because of anything you actively did, but because they stubbornly refused to evolve. You outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated inconsistency. You bravely shed the identity that accepted bare minimum love. You became too expensive for their cheap transactional energy, and now they remain painfully stuck in cycles they can't break. You, on the other hand, broke free from repeating patterns. You have already healed from chasing validation you no longer need. That's not your karma. That's their painful lesson. Their collapse is quiet, almost imperceptible to the outside world, but devastating internally. They won't admit it. They might not even fully comprehend it. But deep down they feel it. The very silence they left you in is now the deafening silence echoing inside them. And you? You have become a monument of resilience, a living testament to what powerfully happens when someone walks away from you, and you finally, unequivocally, walk toward yourself. They thought leaving you would destroy you, but you're quiet, profound. Transformation, that is what is systematically destroying them from within. Their unforeseen defeat, your healing as their punishment, they expected rage, tears, a complete meltdown. They anticipated a spectacle, a dramatic moment where they could conveniently label you as crazy, obsessed, or too emotional. But you gave them absolutely nothing. No desperate late-night messages, no dramatic social media posts, no emotional war to fight. And somehow, that very absence of drama is precisely what broke them. Because here's the profound truth. Your healing hurts them in ways revenge never, ever could. Revenge screams its intent. Healing quietly echoes its victory. Revenge is loud and reactive. It validates their false belief that they still wield power over you. But healing? Healing is silent, strategic, and utterly unreachable. When you truly heal, you become invisible to their chaos. And there is nothing more terrifying to a manipulator than realizing they have completely lost the script because you simply stopped showing up for their toxic performance. You walked off their stage, symbolically burned the costume, and bravely rewrote your entire character arc. They cannot retaliate when you're not even playing their game anymore. Why can't they tolerate your peace? Most people mistakenly believe toxic individuals want you to suffer. That's not entirely accurate. What they truly crave is access to your energy. Whether it's your joy, your sadness, or your fury, they thrive on engagement. They feed voraciously on your emotional reactions. Even your anger, paradoxically, validates their twisted sense of significance. So when you stop responding, stop explaining, stop needing them, you become a void to them. And a void, by its very nature, is utterly impossible to manipulate. That, my friend, is what drives them utterly insane. Consider Derek's real-life snapshot. After years of being gaslit by his ex, Derek went silent. No revenge, no arguments. He blocked her number, moved cities, and initiated complete no contact. Months later, she messaged him, "So you're just going to forget me like I never mattered?" He didn't reply, because by the time she finally realized the true value of what she had lost, he had already profoundly outgrown the version of himself who needed her validation. That silence had haunted her far more deeply than any insult ever could. The ego simply cannot handle irrelevance. When you heal without seeking their permission, without trying to prove a point, you fundamentally shatter the illusion that they were ever essential to your ego. To them, this is utterly unacceptable, because your healing implies a brutal truth. You were never the center of my universe. I just didn't know it yet. That truth, that quiet, devastating revelation, is what truly burns them. You found peace. They found emptiness. While you were diligently nourishing your soul, they were fruitlessly chasing shadows. While you were wisely investing in your self-worth, they were obsessively checking your online status. While you were powerfully leveling up mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, they were clinging desperately to the last faded memory of who you used to be. But you're not that person anymore. You are wiser now, stronger, and more resilient. You don't heal to impress. You heal to become utterly unreachable. And the more profound peace you discover, the louder their internal chaos becomes. You chose discipline over drama. Let's be honest, the old version of you might have fought back, might have posted passive-aggressive quotes online, might have engaged in toxic dialogues, might have desperately begged for closure that never arrived. But now you chose spiritual discipline. You chose to master your emotions instead of senselessly leaking them. You chose to rebuild in silence, brick by meticulous brick, thought by thoughtful thought. That monumental decision didn't just save you. It utterly destroyed the fantasy they harbored of controlling you forever. You are no longer seeking justice. You became it. Healing isn't passive avoidance. It is active justice. Because when you walk away with profound dignity, when you stop explaining your worth, when you stop dancing for meager crumbs, you powerfully shift from victim to victor. You didn't need a war. You just needed profound clarity. And now your life itself is the irrefutable proof that you made the correct choice. Your peace is their punishment. Your growth is your revenge. Your silence is the definitive closing statement. They wanted you broken. You chose to be whole. They desired a shattered version of you, forever replaying the painful scene of the discard. But instead you chose to completely walk off the battlefield. No noise, no drama, just quiet, profound elevation. And now every single step you take in your healing journey becomes a silent scream in their conscience. They discarded you, hoping you would disappear into pain. You did disappear, but you vanished into power. And that, my friend, is the part they never, ever saw coming. They didn't fear your pain. They feared your magnificent transformation. Not your tears, not your heartbreak, but the very moment you became emotionally unreachable, because that's when they knew, with crushing certainty, that they had lost the last thread of control over you. Detachment, not coldness. You're unshakable. Fortress, let's break down the profound psychological power of this transformation. Detachment is not coldness. It is ultimate mastery. You are not cold. You are not bitter. You are profoundly aware of who gains access to your precious emotions, aware of the immense cost of allowing chaos to infiltrate your hard-won peace. Finally, you're deeply aware of your own intrinsic worth. Emotional detachment is not about avoiding connection. It's about discerning and choosing who is truly worthy of your authentic connection. You used to give that freely. Now you guard it fiercely, like the sacred gift it truly is. And this profound shift, it makes manipulators absolutely panic, because they cannot trigger what they can no longer reach. Silence doesn't just build a wall. It constructs an impenetrable fortress. People often think silence is merely the absence of noise. But true silence, the kind forged in the crucible of heartbreak, is a formidable fortress. It doesn't isolate you. It rigorously protects you. It meticulously filters energy. It sharpens your discernment. It creates an unassailable psychological boundary where your emotional space is solely yours, not a public park for others to thoughtlessly stomp through. This level of spiritual discipline unnerves toxic individuals because they now realize, with dawning horror, I can't get in unless I'm invited, and I'm not being invited anymore. When you stop explaining, you begin to ascend in the past. You would likely explain your pain, desperately try to make them understand your heart, and endlessly hold out hope that they would get it. But now you have awakened to the liberating truth. People who genuinely care don't need endless explanations, and those who don't care will simply weaponize your explanations against you. So, you stopped talking. You stopped pleading. You stopped hoping they would magically evolve. You chose silence, not because you gave up, but because you finally woke up to your own power. That profound clarity forged a new version of you, someone truly untouchable. Consider Sophia's powerful example. A mother of two, she was relentlessly guilt-tripped by her ex-partner. Every boundary she courageously set was met with gaslighting. You're overreacting. You're just insecure. You'll never find better. But one day she didn't argue back. She didn't cry. She simply and decisively packed her bags, moved into a quiet apartment, and never responded again. Now, years later, she successfully runs a trauma-informed coaching business, teaching other women how to reclaim their energy and power. When asked what changed her the most, she simply stated, "The day I stopped being emotionally available to chaos was the day I got my life back." Your new aura is one of captivating mystery, profound stillness, and undeniable power. There is something profoundly magnetic about someone who simply doesn't react. You walk into a room calm, poised, and deeply focused. There's no need to explain yourself, no desperate desire to prove anything. That, my friend, is quiet confidence. Your emotional neutrality isn't emptiness. It is supreme discipline. And the ones who discarded you, they now sense your absence like a missing oxygen tank. But the oxygen was never you. It was their deluded illusion of control over you. Your boundaries speak far louder than any words ever could. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to loudly announce your growth to the world. You don't need to receive closure from them, because your meticulously set boundaries now speak eloquently on your behalf. They powerfully declare, access denied, not out of lingering hate, but out of a foundation of healed self-worth. That is precisely what makes you truly unreachable, not arrogance, not pride, but genuine power, the kind built from crystal clear emotional clarity. In the intricate game of psychological warfare, those who cannot be triggered invariably win. And you, my friend, have mastered that art. You no longer chase clarity. You are clarity. You no longer seek revenge. You are the karma. You no longer beg for peace. You are peace. And those who so carelessly discarded you, hoping you would collapse, now stare in profound disbelief at a version of you they never saw coming, emotionally unreachable, utterly unbothered, unshackable, and finally, unequivocally free. They mistakenly thought they were punishing you by leaving without closure. But the profound truth is they meticulously built their own prison, brick by painful brick, with every single word they never uttered. And now it is not you who is trapped in confusion. It is them, trapped in the very silence they so carelessly chose, the haunting echo, their self-inflicted punishment. The illusion of power they sought through discard is crumbling. Discarding someone without explanation is indeed a controlled tactic. It effectively leaves the other person spiraling, questioning everything, replaying every painful moment. It is a silent weapon, and initially it appears to work. But here's what they fundamentally failed to anticipate: that silence wouldn't merely echo in your heart. It would eventually, inescapably, echo in theirs. Because while you were diligently healing, they were likely rehearsing that last scene on an endless loop. Should I have said something? Did they move on? Do they hate me now? The very silence they once wielded as a weapon has now become their own agonizing psychological punishment. You are no longer the one waiting. They fully expected you to wait, to break down, to beg for answers. But when they finally dared to look back, they didn't find you crying. They found a profound void, a space they used to occupy, now beautifully filled with inner peace. And that crushing realization hits them harder than any angry response ever could, because it starkly tells them that you were never as necessary to your own well-being as they narcissistically believed. Consider Marcus, who ended things with no warning, no call, no explanation. He convinced himself it was easier that way, cleaner. But months later, he kept compulsively checking her social media page. She never posted a bitter quote, never ranted online, never reached out. She simply disappeared. That profound silence haunted him, because in that silence he had no control, no narrative, no comforting reassurance. He created that void, and now he was drowning in it, utterly alone. The human mind, by its very nature, cannot tolerate unfinished business. Psychologically, we crave closure. Our minds abhor open loops. And when someone walks away without a word, they mistakenly believe they have freed themselves. But what actually transpires is that their silence transforms into a haunting ghost, not in your life, but in theirs. It whispers in their quietest moments. It ruthlessly questions their decisions at 2 a.m. It follows them into new relationships, because deep down they agonizingly know, I could have handled that better. And that raw self-awareness, that unvarnished truth, is infinitely more painful than any argument they might have endured. The mirror effect is undeniable. Your absence forces deep reflection. You don't need to actively send them guilt. Life has already delivered it. When you disappear with dignity, you become a mirror not to what they did to you, but to who they truly are. And nothing is more terrifying than being left utterly alone with your own conscience. They chose silence. Now it is their answer. You do not owe them a dramatic finale. You do not need to return and make peace. Let them sit in the quiet. Let them confront the emotional vacuum they once heartlessly forced upon you. That silence, it speaks now, and it powerfully declares, this chapter is over. Not because you closed it, but because I outgrew it. You are no longer waiting. They are. When you no longer fill their void, they inevitably fall into it. They discarded you. They thought their silence would utterly destroy you. But they never once imagined you would meticulously build a vibrant life within that silence, a life brimming with strength, peace, and profound purpose. And now they are left endlessly pacing the same emotional hallway they tried to trap you in. But this time, with no one left to call and no door left to knock on, they realized they disappeared first. You just made it permanent. Let them sit in it. The realization you're never coming back, there's a moment. It doesn't happen immediately. It might take weeks, months, or even years. But it always arrives, that single haunting moment when they finally realize with crushing certainty that you are never ever coming back. Not because you're bitter, not because you're actively seeking revenge, but because you have grown so immeasurably far beyond them that they no longer recognize the magnificent version of you they so carelessly abandoned. The shift is subtle, yet devastatingly impactful. At first, they are confident. They expect you to reach out. They believe you will break. They assume your silence is merely a temporary storm before your inevitable return. But as precious time relentlessly passes, they begin to notice that your name isn't appearing anywhere. You're not watching their stories. You've stopped responding to mutual friends. You've vanished not just physically, but spiritually. And that precisely is when the profound dread begins to set in, because it finally agonizingly sinks in. I discarded someone who could have been everything, and now I am not even an afterthought in their world. The weight of real loss is unbearable. They didn't just lose your physical presence. They lost someone who truly listened, someone who genuinely forgave, someone who saw their brokenness and loved them despite it all. And now that kind of deep, unconditional love, it's incredibly rare, almost extinct in their experience. They'll desperately search for it in others, but they will find only hollow mirrors of themselves, superficial, reactive, transactional, because you didn't love them for the facade they presented. You loved them for the profound person they could have been, and they foolishly threw that away. That's not merely regret. That's self-inflicted spiritual punishment. Your life is the closure. You don't need to send a message. You don't need to post a cryptic quote. You don't need to remind them of what they lost. Your healed, unstoppable, and elevated life is the message. Your peace is the powerful punctuation. Your silence is the irrefutable proof. Your growth is the haunting ghost that visits them nightly. Consider Anthony and Jade's story. Anthony discarded Jade, fully expecting her to fall apart. He watched from the shadows, waiting for the desperate call, the inevitable meltdown, her eventual return. But instead, she powerfully leveled up. New friends, a new mindset, a new glow that radiated from within. At a mutual friend's wedding, they crossed paths. She greeted him with calm indifference, no anger, no sadness, just profound stillness. And in that precise moment, he felt it, a crushing realization. She's not mine anymore, not even a little. That understanding crushed him far more deeply than any fit of rage ever could. When they finally feel what you felt, the irony is brutally poetic. You cried in silence. You begged the universe for answers. You wrestled with the profound confusion they so carelessly left behind. And now they are the ones haunted by relentless questions. They are the ones overthinking every detail. They are the ones compulsively checking if you've looked at their story. But it is too late, because your soul has already decisively closed that door and thrown away the key. They didn't expect the final goodbye to be silent. Here's what they never imagined, that your final goodbye wouldn't come in the form of a dramatic fight, but in the profound form of your unwavering absence. No anger, no forced closure, no vengeful acts, just silence. Not the silence of heartbreak, but the profound silence of a healed soul who no longer begs to be chosen. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to save yourself. And now, while they sit amidst the desolate ruins of what could have been, your rising presence is peaceful, powerful, and utterly unreachable. And that, my friend, is the defining moment they realize it's truly over, forever. They discarded you without a word, thinking you'd chase them, thinking you'd fall apart. But what they never, ever expected was that you would rise. Not with noise, not with revenge, but with unshakable stillness. You stopped begging. You stopped explaining. And in your silence, you became more powerful than you ever were. Because the most devastating truth for someone who tried to erase you is realizing you healed without them. You moved on without a single word. So if you're still holding on to that silence, still wondering if they'll ever regret it, let this be your definitive answer. They will, but by then you'll be too far gone for it to matter. Keep diligently mastering your emotional intelligence. Keep fiercely guarding your hard-won peace. And never again, not for a single moment, forget your immeasurable worth. If this message resonated deeply with you, hit the like button to powerfully show you're reclaiming your power. Comment below with "I disappeared and found myself." And if you are committed to walking this courageous path of quiet strength and stoic power, subscribe now to join a thriving community that steadfastly refuses to be broken. Because here at StoicCraft, we don't chase closure, we become it.